right, we're being joined by Dumek B. Iyeke, one of the research analysts with Financial Derivatives Company, to look at some of the developments in the commodities market space. Of course, Dumek B, good morning. Good to see you. And of course, we'll have to start off with the latest on the global oil market space. We're seeing the U.S. trying to pull their string there, trying to ensure that the prices of oil get down because of their inflation going up. So what do you guys at the MDC make of this latest development we're seeing in the oil space?
I mean, it's a reaction, obviously, to the fact that they have made several calls, to OPEC to significantly increase supply so that global oil prices reduce. But, OPEC hasn't really been forthcoming in that regard. OPEC Plus is more conservative in its production, in its supply strategy to make sure that prices do not dip as much as, what happened last year. So, with the fact that the global economy is recovering, demand is recovering, and there are also fears of inflation. For example, UK inflation is at a decade high of 4.2%, same as the US, China as well, recording high levels of inflation. India as well, raised concerns, and this is, basically on the back of rising energy costs for a lot of these countries. So, US, like you rightly said, is trying to pull its strings, to get a lot of people on board. Let us do this, and that's because China already had hinted that it would, release oil from its strategic reserves to taper down, to taper prices. So it's just to, make prices, go lower.
Some analysts are of the view that perhaps this release of a strategic reserve may really not be the lasting solution to what they are trying to do, unless OPEC or the shale oil is being, increased.
The thing is, for a significant thing to happen, there has to be some move. With just this information alone, made oil prices trend lower. How much more if they actually decide to do something? And the countries that we're talking about are the top importing countries, top oil consuming countries, and they are very strategic. They are very strategic with their oil importation. They have reserves to last them for years. So for them to say this is what we have to do right now to make sure that we don't have runaway inflation, to make sure that we're able to reduce energy costs and keep prices, domestic commodity prices, at a very significant level. For them to do this, we're clearly going to see oil prices, reduce. It might not be as significant as if OPEC, comes on board the increase in supply train, but I mean, it will do something for them. Remember, we're entering into the winter season. Natural gas prices are really high, and so a lot of these countries, are diverting their demand towards oil. So they are trying to have like a win situation. They don't want to be on a lose-lose situation where they can't purchase as much natural gas and at the same time they can't purchase as much oil. Yeah,
but we have seen the COVID cases rise in Europe, and that's also posing some kind of a risk to demand.
Yes, but considering the fact that when you weigh it, the increase in COVID cases is not as much as what is happening right now with the recovery in the economy. I mean, if we compare this to last year, it's not as much, and clearly there's actually a lot of rebound in the global economy. Economies are not reimposing lockdowns, even if some have hinted that they could reimpose lockdowns, compared to as much countries that were doing that, last year. There's a huge difference. So there's a huge difference from where we're coming from and where we are now. And the truth of the matter is that so many countries, especially the US, China, even India, are fast, recovering from a lot of things.
How low?
Increase in demand.
Yeah, how low do you think oil price will probably go with what the US and China are trying to do?
So I mean, if they decide to do it, we could see oil prices reduced to about like 75 to 79, and that's because this might not really shake the market as much as OPEC increasing supply significantly.
And I mean, when this happens, of course, has some implications
for Nigeria.
For Nigeria. But
Yes.
I mean, how much of that are we going to feel? Since I mean, even at 75, we're still above the budget.
Yes. So definitely, would still see some increase in oil revenue, and that's because oil prices are going to be, like, let's say around $76 per barrel, and that's still good news for us. Our benchmark, even for the 2022 budget, is about 55, you know, so 52, 55, yeah. So it's still, Nigeria is still, you know, going to be cushioned from whatever oil price shocks that could hit
But we're
us.
seeing our reserves decline.
Yeah, that's
recently.
because the CBN is intensifying its effort towards increasing forex supply at the official window.
But is that making much impact?
I mean, we can clearly see that demand is still significantly more than supply, but with the CBN intensifying its efforts, we're going to clearly see that within this festive period, normally during the festive period, forex demand is usually high. You know, a lot of people are taking, are demanding for forex for travel expenses and stuff. So we will definitely still see that increase in demand. The expectation is that supply should be able to somewhat, you know, service the demand, so that the naira doesn't crash as much as what happened in September, when the parallel market rate was as high as 580.
All right, now with what we're seeing in the global oil market now, and of course with the energy crisis, the rising COVID cases in Europe, the rising inflation, even though our own inflation is coming down, the Monetary Policy Committee will be meeting next week. How do you think that would actually affect their decision?
Okay, so let's look at it from the domestic, you know, happenings first. So with the fact that inflation is down, GDP numbers will be released before the meeting. Clearly, the expectation is that growth will still be positive. Most likely, the MPC would maintain status quo again, because of the fact that the inflation, you know, on a data level is declining. GDP is still positive. The expectations that, and the main consideration would be that, and if they decide to maintain status quo, which is very likely, it's going to be hinged around the fact that the economy is recovering. We're seeing an increase in business activities. Consumer demand is somewhat, you know, it's better off than what it was a few months ago, or even last year. So those are the things that the MPC are going to look at, and they would likely maintain status quo again.
All right, we're gradually coming to another close of a week.
Yes.
So take us through the domestic commodities price movement so far, and of course the outlook.
Yes, generally we're still seeing commodity prices trend higher. Cooking gas is still really high. It's expected to increase again. The price of beans is still high. Pepper is still high. Onions is really high, and that's because of seasonality. Right now is the planting season for onions. Vegetable oil is still high, but in general, the expectation is that these prices are still going to remain this way, and that's because we're fast approaching the festive season. There's going to continue to be an increase in demand. The issues affecting the supply of food within the domestic market, ranging from insecurity to the exchange rate pass-through to supply chain disruptions, are still very pertinent and will continue to affect commodity prices.
All right, thank you very much, Dumebi. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, that was Dumebi Yeke, one of the research analysts with Financial Derivatives Company.